battleship is ending. Today, the world of war on water is changing faster than ever before. With secret seals, silent subs, and heavy metal superships. It's an international race to get swift, get stealthy, and get personal with tomorrow's deadliest marine machines. For nearly 6 centuries, a nation's greatness was measured by the might of its navy and the size of its battleships. But that equation changed with the end of the Cold War. These days, smaller ships deliver the biggest punch. Maritime nations around the world are focusing on their shallow, narrow, nearshore channels, bays and ports. The battlefield's known in naval terms as the littoral zone. Nearly 2/3 of the world's population lives along the saltwater littoral. They're sitting ducks for a sudden strike from an enemy without a fleet or a flag. These are the marine machines that are being deployed to deter and destroy them. Super-fast subs and shallow draft attack boats, roaring hovercraft and high-tech rafts that can put boots and armor on the beach in minutes. Around the globe, those boots are filled by specialized select squads of warriors whose slippery job is to work wet. The British SAS, the Russian Spetsnaz, the Royal Dutch Marines, and in the US, they're Navy SEALs. Below the surface of a silent sleeping bay, a long black tube rises from the deck of an American submarine. It's sleek and noiseless, with no windows, no wake, and no hint of what is lurking inside. This is the SDV, the SEAL Delivery Vehicle. It's a super-silent, battery-powered marine machine that transports small teams of highly trained commandos to clandestine assignments in shallow rivers, bays, and urban harbors. Its big brother is the ASDS, Advanced SEAL Delivery System. It's 20 meters long, with a range of 200 kilometers and enough life support equipment to sustain a platoon of fighters for 15 hours without coming up for air. On board the ASDS are 16 heavily armed warriors, a pilot and a navigator, flying to a subsurface attack zone with side-scan sonar and focused sound waves that sweep the underwater horizon. These are the prototype naval warcraft of the 21st century. Modular units of lethal force, traveling and fighting independently, yet connected by wireless broadband technology and global positioning satellites to a command and control center hundreds of kilometers away. A radical system of pressure locks transfers fighters from the mothership to the ASDS and out into open water, keeping SEALs warm and dry until it's time to deploy. Their nickname stands for sea, air, and land. But the US Navy SEALs always keep one fin in the water. They're the descendants of the frogmen of the Second World War, working in tightly bonded squads of less than a dozen warriors. All of them trained in skills that range from martial arts to safecracking, and armed to the gills with tomorrow's ultimate underwater firearms. This is the future of combat close to the coastline. It is what the world's navies call inshore war. a quick and deadly sea strike. And Navy SEALs are just part of a new maritime arsenal that is focused on speed, stealth, and agility. Sea strike ability is being integrated with a quick response coastal sea shield to guard cities and ports, and highly mobile sea bases to shape the deep ocean battlefields of the 21st century, rewriting every page of the ancient rulebook of war at sea. In a black lagoon, the SEALs wear scuba diving gear specially adapted to a combat role. And they're wired into a truly cellular communication system, where every man is equipped to connect with every level of the team. A key to avoiding friendly fire in the confusion of a midnight mission. With their lives depending on being undetected, a rising foam of bubbles would be a dead giveaway. But chemical rebreather tanks recycle their breath, leaving no trail and no trace.
This is what the Navy SEALs use underwater when they're doing combat diving operations. It's important to have this device not only be acoustically sound, but also have a very low magnetic signature. You have hoses that come from the breathing bags into the diver's mouth, exhalation through here. The carbon dioxide that comes out is then scrubbed into usable oxygen again, and then keeps the breathing loop going for an extended period of time, upwards of 3 hours.
They wear the rebreathers across their chests, leaving their backs free to haul a miniature mine powerful enough to blow an enemy warship out of the water. That's the heart of the job, planting underwater explosives and conducting reconnaissance on harbors, beaches, and vessels. 60 years ago, in the early days of scuba, SEALs were the world's first underwater warriors, placing mines and high explosives in the path of enemy warships. A generation later, in Vietnam, they became the devils with the green faces, underwater demolition teams that could infiltrate, penetrate, and detonate without being seen above the surface. Today, out of every 20 SEAL pups who begin training, only 5 or 6 will qualify to join the Naval Special Warfare Command. They'll have to survive Hell Week.
Get down in the mud and start crawling!
5 days and 5 nights of punishment, with a total of 4 hours sleep. Every operation demands fighting skill on the ground, above the ground, and underwater. SEALs can slither from a submarine, parachute from a high-altitude aircraft, or splash down in full scuba gear from a hovering Sea Knight helicopter with a 10-meter plunge. However a SEAL joins the action, his mission and his own survival depend on the guns he carries with him. The SEALs travel light. Since most missions last less than 48 hours, they pack only the necessities. Drinking water, a combat rifle, grenade launchers, plastic explosives, and higher firepower like the Stoner light machine gun. Excess weaponry and excess groceries are left behind. Unlike their Hollywood image, SEALs are trained not to kill in great numbers. They land and they leave without a trace. If the SEALs have done their job well, no one will ever know that they were there. Until it is too late. On land, the SEALs spray conventional army ammo. But when close-range combat goes underwater, their arsenal switches from the standard to the sci-fi extreme. Among the top-secret tools of the trade is the German-made P11 pistol. Its sleek, needle-like ammunition remains deadly accurate in a liquid environment that slows and scatters conventional bullets. It's lethal at a range of up to 15 meters. Coming up, the American warship that sinks itself to get boots on the beach in a hurry. battleships. For more than a century, they were the most terrifying weapons that the sea had ever seen. Mid-ocean monsters blasting away at foreign fleets of similar size and power. But then an era ended. The great dinosaurs of destruction glided into calmer waters. Most were scrapped. But there are a few majestic survivors. The city of Norfolk in the American state of Virginia is the retirement home of America's largest surviving battleship, the USS Wisconsin. It's embedded in a berth that had to be dredged down to bedrock to handle its 10-meter draft. Today, the ship that veterans fondly call the Whiskey is a popular tourist attraction. Its 40-centimeter guns are stilled. Its hardwood decks and crewmen's quarters are quiet. Jim Cummins sailed aboard the Wisconsin as an able seaman when it still was very much a ship of war.
Right now, this ship is inactive, Navy ready reserve. It means that it can be put back in commission in about a year.
For nearly 100 years, mighty battleships reigned supreme in a contest of giants. The battleship era began in the 19th century, when the dawning of the age of steam ended the 1,000-year supremacy of wooden ships and iron men. The French were the first to embrace the new technology, producing the world's first armor-plated, ironclad, the Glory, in 1860. Rival Britain was forced to follow suit with a pair of revolutionary iron-hulled steam-powered fighting ships. Across the Atlantic, the deadliest war in American history pitted North and South in a clash of appalling violence. At sea, both sides copied the European innovations and added a rotating turret gun for even more devastating firepower. Italy, Russia and Japan copied the trend as heavy armor, heavy cannon and steam-driven mobility changed the face of sea-based warfare forever. At the beginning of the 20th century, Britain and Germany were locked in a naval arms race of epic proportions, resulting in the launching of the Dreadnought, a super-sized British ship larger than any ship that had ever sailed in anger. Like staggering heavyweight boxers, the Dreadnoughts ruled the seas and helped the Allies prevail in the war to end all wars. When the First World War ended, international treaties limited the size and number of battleships. But they soon were ignored as the world's navies gathered steam for the onset of World War II and the shuddering thunder of a savage war at sea. In the North Atlantic, swift, silent German U-boats trailed and tortured even the mightiest battleships. But then came an entirely new kind of warship. Aircraft carriers launching tiny, fragile fighter planes. Dive bombers scattered the U-boats and delivered deadly blows to the lumbering giants on the surface. The biggest warships became the biggest targets, hunting trophies for pilots who didn't have to stand and fight. In the years following World War II, the aircraft carrier became the backbone of naval fleets around the world, the ultimate heavy metal marine machine. Today, 9 countries maintain dozens of carriers on the deep-sea battlefield. Supercarriers like the American giant George Washington extend their owner's shoreline and project their power, providing security thousands of kilometers from home. The ultimate sea base for military operations. In full battle gear, these portable airports rule an 800-kilometer circle of security. On deck, screaming Super Hornet jets return from their overnight assignments. 70 planes and 6,000 sailors on a megaship as massive as a football stadium. Rear Admiral Bill McCarthy is the commander of the Washington Strike Group.
The strike group is comprised of George Washington and her air wing, which is about 70 aircraft. Includes 2 guided missile cruisers, 3 guided missile destroyers, a frigate, and then a replenishment ship and a submarine.
Off an enemy coastline, aircraft carriers can deliver destruction at a distance. But they also carry a whopping price tag. $3.5 billion for a megaship like the Washington. And there's another problem. These giants may be invincible in mid-ocean, but dockside they are sitting ducks. Today's navies are retooling and rethinking to defeat an enemy without a fleet or a flag in an age of inshore warfare. When the battle zone can be as small as a beach or city harbour, ultimate victory still requires boots on the ground, getting troops and weapons on shore through hostile fire, then backing off fast to ferry another load from a mothership lurking in the surf. This is the mother of all motherships. It's the USS Saipan, a new species of troopship as massive as an old-school aircraft carrier. A 40,000-ton multitasker whose motto is, "We do it all." The Saipan can cross an ocean, put Marines on the beach, cover them with air support, and command them with a wireless communications network that stretches all the way back to the Pentagon. Bert Hasse is the Saipan's captain.
Captain's on the bridge!
The United States Navy is operating in a different environment than we operated in the Cold War.
Today, combating the terror threat of a new century has replaced Cold War confrontation as the mission statement for the navies of the world. The goal is to get as many Marines as required on shore as quickly as possible and support them there.
Move, move!
The Saipan has the tools to do it. It was designed to do the work of 5 ships: assault, transport, cargo, landing, and command, all in one. Locked and loaded, Saipan can carry 6 Harrier attack planes, 4 Super Cobra attack helicopters, and 25 support helicopters, along with a crew of over 1,000 men. All in a multi-decked vessel less than 250 meters long. And it's what Saipan holds down below that really makes it unique. A full-sized Marine detachment of more than 1,900 fully armed fighters.
The Saipan has a native role in this littoral warfare because our primary partner is the United States Marine Corps.
Delivering these Marines is what the Saipan is really all about. The LCAC, landing craft air-cushioned, and the Nighthawk and Sea Dragon helicopters can get a strike force from ship to shore swiftly, in almost any terrain, in any weather calmer than a hurricane.
My name is Senior Chief Jeff Torrey. Welcome to the Combat Information Center. This is the eyes and ears of the ship.
The assault operation is coordinated from the Saipan's Combat Information Center. When it's mission time, the combat system team goes into action, coordinating nearly 1,000 crew and twice as many troops from the cool precision of the control room to the frantic ballet of the flight deck. The US Navy is already working on the next generation of electronic operations. A computer communications network that will link ships like the Saipan by satellite to hundreds of other vessels instantly. And coordinate communications for sailors, officers and Marines. Wireless broadband communications for ocean combat in the internet age. From high-tech to lower decks, aboard the Saipan, steam power still plays a major role in ship operations. with 2 diesel-fired turbines producing 70,000 horsepower. The Saipan roars to life with the heart of a fiery furnace and arteries of scalding steam. Joe Sampson is the Saipan's chief boilermaker. If his fire goes out, the ship stops moving.
This is like the heart of the ship. Without this boiler right here, the ship would have no electricity or the ship would not be able to move.
Here, in the roar of the engine room, they produce the power for state-of-the-art radar and communications gear. Revolutionary steam turbines provide the muscle when it's time to punch the throttle.
Be dead in the water.
This power plant produces the juice for a city of lights, rivers of fresh water, and the air conditioning to keep the rest of the crew cool. Each boiler is geared up with a steam turbine to turn low-tech fire into high-tech horsepower. The hotshots who work down here have one of the toughest jobs on the ship. Boiler maintenance is hot, hard work that hasn't changed much since the first diesel-powered ship in 1910. Every 4 days, one of the burners in one of the ship's 6 boilers has to be removed and replaced. To keep the boilers cooking and the engines churning, the Saipan swallows fuel by the second. Long-duration missions make mid-ocean refueling essential. Cargo helicopters replenish supplies and connect ships to shore. Even in the age of email, nothing is as welcome as a real letter from home. But when the fuel tanks are full and mail call is over, the real work of a modern warship resumes. Afloat on a calm sea, Saipan looks like an old-fashioned aircraft carrier. But it's the way Saipan sinks itself on purpose that makes it unique. This is the well deck at the stern of the Saipan. A semi-submerged saltwater pool where the LCACs, the giant air-cushioned landing craft, are fueled, crewed and sent into harm's way.
When we launch the LCACs, they have to be a dry deck, which is what it is now.
The LCAC is the Marines' heavy-duty delivery van. It's powerful enough to carry an M1A1 Abrams battle tank and agile enough to roar at nearly 80 kilometers an hour with 75 tons of cargo on board.
Okay, my primary position, I'm the craft master. I do all the driving. Momentarily, we'll be starting all 4 gas turbine engines. We won't be serving peanut compressors on this flight, and it is a non-smoking flight.
That's more than 4 times faster than the beach-busting landing craft that helped win the Second World War. Those boats could only travel half the distance of the LCAC. The LCAC's range can extend more than 360 kilometers fully loaded. And it can touch down almost anywhere on Earth. With the Saipan's helicopter gunships overhead for support, the LCAC transits from sea to shore. The LCAC may not ride as smoothly as a luxury sedan, but the Navy isn't in the limousine business. It's a marine machine with a mission: get boots on the beach in a hurry. With a price tag over $20 million apiece, an LCAC is a rare and precious beast. The US Navy owns 90 of them. Much of the Navy's heavy beach-busting work relies on a craft reminiscent of Second World War landing craft. The LCU. The Saipan can piggyback up to 7 of these veteran warriors, and to launch them, it has to sink on purpose.
They have to be a wet deck. And what we do, we'll fill up the well to around 6 or 7 feet of water. Okay, I'm the DCA, I'm Damage Control Assistant. One of my primary jobs on board the ship is to keep the ship from flooding. One of my other primary jobs is to sink the ship. Just imagine having 19 swimming pools inside your house and filling it up with 11 feet to 27 feet of water. As soon as we fill it up, the ship sinks, and we send the ships out.
With a draft of about 8 meters, Saipan, like most large naval vessels, can operate in about 99% of the world's saltwater. But it's that last 1%, the littorals, the coastlines, harbours and rivers, that nations need to protect against today's most urgent threats. Coming up, nearshore war goes high-tech and high-speed with a deadly new rubber raft navy.
자, DHL을 기다리고 있다고. 이젠 보내야 돼. 파란색으로 정했던 것 아니야?
어떻게 생각해? 파란색? 아니면 보라색?
파란색.
글쎄, 난 보라색이 좋은데 더 부드러워 보이잖아.
부드럽지.
아니면 너무 약해 보일까?
맞아, 너무 약해 보여.
파란색 맞지?
무조건 파란색이야. 그게 더 너무 강해 보이는 거 아니야? 보라색이 더 감각적인 거.
감각적인 거? 그거 좋지.
그냥 보라색이 아니고 파란 빛이 도는 보라색이니까.
강하면서 감각적이라 난 그게 좋은데.
그래?
모르겠어. 좋아하는 거 맞나?
알았다. 노란색이야.
노란색 좋지.
미안해요. 5분만요.
All the way.
내셔널 지오그래픽 채널이 메트로와 함께 매주 금요일 밤 12시 신선한 지식을 전달합니다. 그 누구도 촬영하지 못한 장면, 아찔한 모험의 순간, 가장 최신의 정보, 당신 앞으로 젊고 생동감 넘치는 영상이 찾아갑니다. 메트로와 함께하는 지식 플러스. 이 프로그램은 메트로와 함께합니다.
Get on board for a new century of war on water, where the orders of the day are connectivity and cyber control. Today, it's all about precision. Surgical strikes by manned and unmanned watercraft in the shallow water littoral combat zone. And it's all about integration, land, air, and sea forces tied together with wireless broadband web links. In the future, a nation's defensive arch will stretch from the vacuum of space to the crushing pressures of the deep ocean. The battle lines that once separated armies, navies and air forces are becoming obsolete, and sea wars are becoming star wars. Information transfer is as important as raw firepower. harmonizing Sea Strike, Sea Shield and Sea Base to define the battle zones. This is Triton, the prototype concept vessel that will play a major role in Britain's defensive shield and defensive response. Triton is scaled down for inshore operations, a 90-metre welterweight hardwired for the new kind of war that the British call Future Surface Combat, or FSC. Triton's basic design reaches back to the great ocean-going canoes of Polynesia. It's the world's biggest trimaran, with a thin, low-profile centre hull stabilised by a pair of outriggers. The perfect formula for stability, sleekness and speed. It took nearly 10 years to draw up the blueprints for this radical new ship of war, and 2 more years to construct what is essentially a 2/3 sized demonstrator, outfitted with a pair of diesel engines, plus 2 side-mounted thrusters for extreme mobility. Everything about Triton is geared to silence, swiftness and stealth. The lighter composite of the propeller allows for thicker blades and reduced acoustic signature, and the diesel's bent between the hulls to avoid detection by heat-seeking mines and missiles. The Triton is a model of modular engineering and construction. From the crew quarters to the engine room, components are built in widely scattered locations, then assembled dockside like a giant game of Lego. It can perform in water just 3 meters deep at a top speed of 37 kilometers an hour, or cross the Atlantic on a single tank of gas. And Britain isn't the only country designing smaller warships for smaller crews. America's DDX land attack destroyer will house a pair of advanced gun systems and 2 electric motors drawing over 70 megawatts of power. Enough juice to light up a city of 60,000, delivering as much lethal force as an Iron Age destroyer with far fewer lives in harm's way. The satellite-based communication system will make the DDX the command and control vessel of future navies. But there is more to this cyber ship than spaceflight guidance. The hull design is called a tumble home. It's built low to the waterline with an inward slant to reduce wave impact. The less the ship pitches and rolls in heavy seas, the smaller its radar signature, and the tougher it is for remote-seeking mines and torpedoes to find it. The DDX will be hard to hear as well. Its 4 all-electric engines work without gears and a drive shaft, greatly reducing the acoustic signature that gives a conventional ship away. The DDX is designed for coastal defense with a lethal cluster of sea-to-air, sea-to-sea and sea-to-land missiles. Each missile bank is separately housed within the ship's steel hull, reducing the collateral damage if one cluster is hit by enemy fire. The DDX carries enough surplus electric generating power to activate light-speed, free-energy laser weapons and high-intensity microwaves. It's a futuristic ship of war with a minimal human crew aboard. The DDX will carry 300 fewer sailors than a conventional destroyer. Even on board, fire suppression will be automated, making this the small, swift superboat of the future. But even the DDX is a giant compared to today's rigid hull inflatable boats, the RIBs. RIBs are perfect for special ops teams of the world's navies deploying in shallow waters. They're nearly unsinkable, as fast as a sports car on a freeway, and difficult to detect by enemy radar and spotting scopes. In sea states that would flip ordinary dinghies and patrol boats, RIBs ride rock steady, and more buoyancy means more payload. A thermo-bonded flotation collar capable of getting almost anyone and anything ashore in quick time, even with 1 or more chambers of the collar punctured by enemy fire. RIBs can't cross large stretches of open water by themselves, That's the job of the Mark V Special Operations Craft, the high-speed launch and landing pad for stealthy SEALs in rubber rafts. The Mark V and its 5-man crew can be airlifted into any littoral area in the world and be fully operational within 24 hours. Running at 90 kilometers an hour and gunning with an arsenal of 25mm cannon and Stinger missiles. It's loaded with plug-and-play radar, GPS mapping software, and satellite communications gear. A mean marine machine that's never out of place or out of touch. RIBS and Special Ops Mark Vs are perfect for small-scale coastal confrontations. But heavy-fire river environments call for a heftier shallow draft craft called the Special Operations Craft Riverine, the SOCR boat. It's all part of a new era of Navy warfare that ranges from open sea to quiet rivers. All around the world, navies are retooling and retraining for lightning-fast personal combat against small groups of determined foes. These are the Royal Dutch Marines, one of Europe's oldest and most specialised fighting forces. With a history stretching all the way back to 1665. Today, these elite commandos are practicing a chilling scenario, liberating a North Sea oil rig that has been seized by terrorists. It's a two-pronged assault by air and sea, with the first wave of Dutch Marines repelling 10 meters from a hovering chopper. The Royal Dutch Marines operate wherever the land meets the sea. The littoral zone.
Sector clear. Yankee 1, dit is 1-2, sector stabiel,
Together, they rely on the Rotterdam, a 14,000-ton amphibious warship with 17,000 horsepower under the hood. The Rotterdam can piggyback 4 EH-101 helicopters and 4 LCUs in its well deck. It's a mighty marine machine for the new era of offshore war. But before the Marines can reach the beach, they have to get past the most effective and cost-effective coastal defense system of all, sea mines. They're automated, inexpensive, virtually undetectable, and almost always deadly. Commander John Dennett is the US Navy's Commodore of the Mobile Mine Assembly Group.
Mines allow you to shape the battle space. They're cheap and effective, allows the commander to focus his attentions elsewhere where they can do the most good by funneling enemy forces into an area where we can better take them on, or we can deny them access to bodies of water, harbors or shipping channels, or those areas that we don't want submarines transiting.
An array of floating or anchored mines puts a coastline off limits, and leaving one small area mine-free defines the battle zone. Mines like Italy's Manta are smart, silent, and sensitive to the signatures of every passing vessel. They can be lowered from ships in a carefully planted grid or scattered at random from an airplane. They've been around for centuries, but today's smart mines are a lot more intelligent than a floating bomb on a string. Some of these new inventions can wait patiently for weeks on the ocean floor, pre-programmed to detonate only when an enemy ship or submarine with a specific engine signature sails by. Others respond only to the magnetic field of warships or the pressure wave of a passing sub. They're almost impossible to detect, and they operate on their own. Smart mines are the secret agents of the sea, shaping the battle zone, forcing the enemy to come out and fight, or stay out of sight. Sea mines are the miniature menaces of the undersea environment. But there are bigger boys haunting the deep-water canyons as well. In the US, a quartet of nuclear-powered and nuclear-armed submarines are undergoing an extreme makeover at a cost of $1 billion apiece. These subs once carried 24 nuclear-tipped Trident missiles, but now they're swapping their megaton missile capability for the advanced SEAL delivery systems and dry lock ports for unmanned mini-subs, the underwater equivalent of the Air Force's deadly drones. And the bedrooms are getting a facelift too, adding 66 bunks for an entire squadron of SEALs. And the sub's most traditional signature weapon has not been forgotten. The torpedo has undergone a radical transformation since the days of the U-boat wars. New heavyweight weapons like Sweden's Torpedo 2000 don't just fire and forget, they can be steered at a distance, closing in on targets over 40 kilometers away. Subsurface smart bombs with a nasty payload. Torpedo 2000 is a revolutionary fly-by-wire weapon with a multi-kilometer range. It's powered by a 7-cylinder engine, fueled with thermal propulsion peroxide gas, and built by Bofors Underwater Systems, the Swedish armaments company acquired more than a century ago by Alfred Nobel. Sleek, silent and wake-free, the world's newest torpedo is designed for a defensive role along Sweden's rocky island-studded coastline and the frigid waters of the Baltic Sea. Torpedo 2000 can reliably kill any lightweight underwater or surface ship and cripple a nuclear sub or full-sized warship with a single charge. After release from the deck of a warship, Sweden's deadliest torpedo is controlled by a nearly invisible strand of plastic-coated copper wire. A two-way communications link brings back real-time readings on the weapon's position and speed, and relays commands that can change the torpedo's course, alter its trajectory, or even disarm the payload, turn it around and bring it home. The torpedo's onboard computer is programmed to outwit today's smartest underwater mines. It can track multiple targets at the same time, reject false signals, and evade enemy mines with its noiseless and cold signature. Today, torpedoes like the Model 2000 are hitting top speeds of nearly 90 kilometers an hour. But that's slow motion compared to a sci-fi system of warp-drive propulsion called supercavitation. Supercavitating torpedoes travel inside a bubble pocket of gas, virtually eliminating drag, delivering death at a distance at supersonic speeds. It's the sinister stuff of Cold War dreams, wrapped up in tales of espionage, strange underwater explosions, and rumors of submarines that travel faster than the speed of sound, within bubbles of frictionless gas. If the rumors are true, supercavitation will be a quantum leap in underwater warfare, as radical as the jump from propeller planes to jets. After the break, we'll get a pre-season preview of the wet combat gear of the future, surprising subsea weapons and supersized floating battlefields. Gaze into the future, and the world of war at sea grows even more incredible as squadrons of Marines and SEALs fan out in underwater supersonic submarines. The elite vanguard of the agile mobile military of the year 2020 and beyond. This is Deep Flight, the creation of visionary Graham Hawks of the United States. It could carry a fully armed fighter to a depth of 1,000 meters, fully insulated from the crushing pressures and killing cold of the deep ocean. It's flexible, free-flying and bulletproof. The perfect flight suit for underwater infiltration, counter-terrorism and sabotage. But other missions won't be carried out by men at all, because the new code words of the 21st century Navy are get modular, get connected and get unmanned. The future will belong to drones like these mine-hunting marine machines. They can detect and even detonate enemy mines at a distance. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, like this robotic bomb sniffer, will take on missions that used to carry the risk of a human life. But there will never be a substitute for accurate firepower, and the ammunition of the future will be like nothing you have ever seen. These are railguns, the object of intensive research from military innovators around the world. Science fiction supercannons that can deliver super-fast, super-penetrating projectiles, not by exploding conventional gunpowder, but with powerful pulsing magnets operating in sequence along a series of metal rails. The propelling energy of a railgun is so radical that a tiny ball of steel will possess the power to penetrate the armored hull of an enemy ship, accelerating to an incredible velocity of 20,000 kilometers an hour in less than a fifth of a second. The basic physics behind the railgun has been known for more than 80 years. The missing link is an electrical power source powerful enough to accelerate particles to warp speed at sea. But that's just a few years away. A fleet of electric-powered DDX destroyers could have enough generating capacity to make railguns a battle zone reality, making it possible to fire micro-bullets with pinpoint GPS accuracy at a range of nearly 400 kilometers. The ultimate sea strike will come from the ultimate sea base, an artificial city called the Joint Mobile Offshore Base. The jumping-off point for 3,000 armored vehicles and 150 fighters, bombers and cargo aircraft. The foundation of the Joint Mobile Offshore Base is a flotilla of supertanker hulls. They ride high in the water in transit, then partially sink themselves like the USS Saipan to form a stable, wave-resistant artificial island. Fully assembled, it's huge enough to house a full regiment of 3,000 troops. 500,000 square meters of home field advantage that could sail under its own power to any coastline on Earth, without asking for permission. A mobile modular mega carrier for a new world of war. Floating cities, wearable submarines, and hypersonic rifles. They're about to play their part in the drive for victory under, over, and on the sea. It's a vision of the future, when the ocean battles of a new cyber century are won by the ultimate marine machines. Broadband technology and global positioning satellites to a command and control center hundreds of kilometers away. A radical system of pressure locks transfers fighters from the mothership to the ASDS and out into open water, keeping SEALs warm and dry until it's time to deploy. Their nickname stands for sea, air, and land. But the US Navy SEALs always keep one fin in the water. They're the descendants of the frogmen of the Second World War, working in tightly bonded squads of less than a dozen warriors. All of them trained in skills that range from martial arts to safecracking, and armed to the gills with tomorrow's ultimate underwater firearms. This is the future of combat close to the coastline. It is what the world's navies call inshore war, a quick and deadly sea strike. And Navy SEALs are just part of a new maritime arsenal that is focused on speed, stealth, and agility. Sea strike ability, the battlefields known in naval terms as the littoral zone. Nearly 2/3 of the world's population lives along the saltwater littoral. They're sitting ducks for a sudden strike from an enemy without a fleet or a flag. These are the marine machines that are being deployed to deter and destroy them. Super-fast subs and shallow draft attack boats, roaring hovercraft and high-tech rafts that can put boots and armor on the beach in minutes. Around the globe, those boots are filled by specialized select squads of warriors whose slippery job is to work wet. The British SAS, the Russian Spetsnaz, the Royal Dutch Marines, and in the US, they're Navy SEALs. Below the surface of a silent sleeping bay, a long black tube rises from the deck of an American submarine. It's sleek and noiseless, with no windows, no wake, and no hint of what is lurking inside. This is the SDV, the SEAL Delivery Vehicle. It's a super-silent, battery-powered marine machine that transports small teams of highly trained commandos to clandestine assignments in shallow rivers, bays, and urban harbors. Its big brother is the ASDS, Advanced SEAL Delivery System. It's 20 meters long, with a range of 200 kilometers and enough life support equipment to sustain a platoon of fighters for 15 hours without coming up for air. On board the ASDS are 16 heavily armed warriors, a pilot and a navigator, flying to a subsurface attack zone with side-scan sonar and focused sound waves that sweep the underwater horizon. These are the prototype naval warcraft of the 21st century. Modular units of lethal force, traveling and fighting independently. Yet connected by wireless is being integrated with a quick response coastal sea shield to guard cities and ports, and highly mobile sea bases to shape the deep ocean battlefields of the 21st century. Rewriting every page of the ancient rulebook of war at sea. In a black lagoon, the SEALs wear scuba diving gear specially adapted to a combat role. And they're wired into a truly cellular communication system, where every man is equipped to connect with every level of the team. A key to avoiding friendly fire in the confusion of a midnight mission. With their lives depending on being undetected, a rising foam of bubbles would be a dead giveaway. But chemical rebreather tanks recycle their breath, leaving no trail and no trace.
This is what the Navy SEALs use underwater when they're doing combat diving operations. It's important to have this device not only be acoustically sound, but also have a very low magnetic signature. You have hoses that come from the breathing bags into the diver's
battleship is ending. Today, the world of war on water is changing faster than ever before. With secret seals, silent subs, and heavy metal superships. It's an international race to get swift, get stealthy, and get personal with tomorrow's deadliest marine machines. For nearly 6 centuries, a nation's greatness was measured by the might of its navy and the size of its battleships. But that equation changed with the end of the Cold War. These days, smaller ships deliver the biggest punch. Maritime nations around the world are focusing on their shallow, narrow, nearshore channels, bays and ports.